to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Tom Dutta like butter. So excited to be here. We have a wonderful guest in the green room. She's waiting patiently, and we have a few minutes to talk to you about a few interesting things. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you. We're live streaming on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble, and it's accessible after. You can go back and watch it there till we release it formally. And because you're with us, you can chat with us. So if you have a chat feature, put a comment. We'll bring it on the screen, share it with the guests. And I want to say thanks for making the show great. Something on the screen right now for those who can see it, who can't, I'll narrate. So we've been recognized in the last year and a half with some accomplishments by Feedspot out of California. We were ranked number 2 in the top 30 CEO podcasts. And then Feedspot also ranked us in the top 10 Canadian leadership podcasts. And Million Podcasts, who I didn't know, they are a rating agency and they rate storytelling. So apparently we're in the top 100 international storytelling podcasts. So I'm kind of blushing here. You can't tell with my complexion when I blush, but it's only because of the amazing guests we have come on, and the show is booked 1 week, every week, out 4 months with a wait list. And it's a nice problem to have for me. And we didn't start that way. We started just with me and a cheap mic. So let's get rolling here. So we're going to do what I call the show hook, and we'll edit and tidy all this up later before we bring the guests on. So I'm going to set this up here. And the show hook is designed to get you excited and to stay a while. And so please stay till the very end. I think you're going to be blown away by what you're going to hear today. So stand by, everybody, while I set this up. What would it be like to understand our guest story from the inside out? What does a 6-year-old do when her mother sits her down on the couch, clears her throat, and says, "From now on, you're going to have to take care of yourself"? Let that land. And what does a 16-year-old do when she packs a bag, leaves Brooklyn, and never really moves back home again? Think about that, everyone. And what does a 29-year-old do? A 29-year-old woman, what does she do when her boss steps out of a Tribeca restaurant on a summer evening in 1988, looks her in the eye, and offers her $1 million cash to have his child? Well, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. I am Tom Dutta. I'm your host, and today's guest spent, get this, 40 years answering those 3 questions in silence. So picture a Brooklyn apartment in the 1960s, a young father in a fedora, a newspaper man, the night editor at the New York World Telegram and Sun. He picks up his little girl from school sometimes. He takes her to the diner, orders her an egg cream, and listens to her like she is the only person in the world. Then one summer morning, a young police officer knocks at the door. The father's car has been found abandoned on a bridge, and by nightfall, the little girl knows he's not coming home again. Her mother doesn't cry, not then, not ever. And a few days later, she sits her daughter on a couch and says one sentence. The daughter, 6 years old, begins a life of pretending. She pretends she doesn't need to be tucked in. She pretends she doesn't need her hair brushed. She pretends she doesn't hear the silence at that dinner. She gets so good at pretending that by the time she lands on a Wall Street trading desk 23 years later, the very same skills, reading rooms, controlling her face, swallowing her voice, that makes her one of the few women on that floor. Now, she moves hundreds of millions of dollars in a day. She's invincible. She's also still 6 years old on a couch, waiting to be seen. And then comes the night outside that Odeon, the $1 million question. And something inside her finally says, no, What she discovers next about her father, about her mom, about the bridge, about a death certificate, about a red umbrella is a story she could not tell for 40 years until now. And her name is Joanne Redding. And her memoir, I have it here, is The House of Pretend. It publishes 6 days from today. And the woman about to walk on this virtual stage did not just survive, she stopped pretending. So, Joanna, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you having me.
It's so great to have you here. So, you know what, we're going to have a lot of fun here. So I'm just going to get right into what I call setting the scene. And as you were sitting back there, listening to your life, I took us back on purpose to Brooklyn, to the doorway in 1965. So you were 6 years old, lying on a cot, watching a young cop fidget while your mother said, "Thank you, officer." So help us understand a bit about what I just shared, and looking back and as an adult now at that 6-year-old, what actually was the feeling in that hallway, do you think?
I think the police officer knew exactly what had happened to my father. And I think, I can't imagine having that duty to come and tell a woman that her husband is gone and see. Certainly he saw my reflection in the mirror, knowing that there were small children in that house. I'm sure that was an awful duty for him. It was a confusing moment for me. I knew something was really wrong.
Yeah. It's interesting because I did a lot of work on identity, and especially about my own upbringing. And, we don't know when we're 6 years old because we don't have the rational brain. We don't even know how to think and feel. And I guess at that point in time, we don't know what we're feeling. So thank you for sharing that. Looking back and as an adult, it's an interesting perspective that you gave us. So now, are you ready to go into Plato's Garden to have some fun storytelling?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me put something on the screen. We're going to set this up. So add this to the stage here. All right, so stand by while I set this up. Well, there we have a harp, and welcome to Plato's Garden. Joanne, welcome. So Plato's Garden, for the audience, was Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, and he was the founder of the Platonist school of thought and the academy. It was actually from the Greek word academia. Apparently, Joanne, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. You kind of see a picture there, right, of Aristotle and Plato. And what they're doing is they're walking and talking, but they're doing something adults don't do that well. They're having thoughts about their thoughts, so they're reflecting. So what we'll be doing is weaving your conversation and mine through 3 areas, and this is called influences of context. And what I really mean by that is the audience is going to be able to mesh together everything through these 3 areas and kind of figure out a deeper meaning about you and your story. So the first area will be macro, and not in this order, but what was happening in the world around you that influenced the public work you're doing. 2 is mezzo, what was happening in the sector where you do your work. And then 3 is micro, my favorite, what was going on with you. And a lot of people take us right back to childhood, and we know in this case, you more than likely will do that. So I'm going to throw this out to get us started. This is the first thought. I'm meaning micro here, the personal side. So a few days after the funeral, your mother sat you on the living room couch and said one sentence: from now on, you're going to have to take care of yourself. And you were 6, as we know. Take us into that couch. What did your body feel like? What were your hands doing? Or what was that to you?
I felt enormous confusion and fear. I wasn't sure if it was just me she was telling that to. I had 2 siblings who were older than I was. I wasn't quite sure what would happen if I didn't take care of myself. And what did that mean? Did it just mean putting myself to bed, feeding myself, reading to myself, having nobody else doing that with me? And for that moment at that age, that's all I could imagine it being. I didn't realize that it would mean never having anyone to really look after me or talk to me or advise me or to consult with. Physically, I remember feeling like I was in shock. I wanted to run. I wanted to throw up. I had a whole host of things going through me physically. I wanted to cry, but I knew my mother didn't like it when you cried. That was not not acceptable. But I was really also struggling with the thought of what would happen to me if I didn't do a good job taking care of myself. Would I be would I disappear like my father had. And when my father died, it wasn't just that he died and we mourned him and grieved him and talked about him. He was erased. It was like he never existed. He was never mentioned again. So that fear definitely stuck with me.
Well, that's incredible. Now, I'm going to put another camera on the screen here for a sec. I did a lot of research, read your book, so we're going to honor you later on that. But it's interesting because I'm reading about you. You're a very interesting lady. And I just want to say this for the audience to get a sense of this woman who at 6 just told you what she was feeling in that moment. But here's what you've done through your life. You're, as we mentioned, a former Wall Street bond trader, certified master gardener, which I find fascinating. Like who does that? And you have a degree in landscape design, bachelor's degree in French, master's in finance from New York University. And you've done so much. You worked at JFK Airport, Alitalia, French engineering firm in Paris, 15 years on Wall Street, which we'll get into, trading. This was interesting, U.S. Treasuries and French bonds. I didn't know there was a thing. And then, of course, the proud mom of 2 kids. So I'm going to add this to the screen now and tell us about what we're looking at.
So that's just an old photo. I don't have many old photos. That's my mother and my brother, and that's me sitting in her lap.
And what was your brother's name again?
Thomas.
Yeah, we'll get through that part of the story. But I was struck by, I have a copy of the book here, and I want to thank you for signing it for me, advanced reader. But I was struck by that picture. And why did you put that picture on the cover?
It just seemed like part of the pretend. It looked like we were a little bucolic little trio of people. And my mother looked happy as she was gazing down at me, but I never felt that.
Interesting. Well, that's really interesting. Thanks for explaining that. It's a beautiful book. We'll talk about that more in a while. The thing you were talking about your mom didn't like when you cried. You know, there's so many adults now who probably have some thoughts that are similar. But I read somewhere the word narcissist. So when did you start learning about what that was? Did you learn that later in life, or did somebody tell you?
As growing up, I read a lot growing up.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me understand and realize that the behavior that I was witnessing wasn't the norm. It wasn't how most families functioned.
Yeah.
And, in reading, you hear about different personality disorders and different mental health issues. And my mother would, she was someone who pretended well herself, right? When we'd be outside, she'd appear to be charming. She was very smart. But as soon as she got inside, it was totally different. And growing up, as you became older as a child and you started questioning things and, questioning what had happened in life, just in general, she was a big gaslighter. She would swear things never happened that you knew happened and say things were different than the reality that you knew. And, there are moments where you start thinking perhaps you're going crazy, but fortunately I had siblings to kind of, double check things with. And that, again, reading lets you understand what narcissism is. And she definitely was a narcissist, as well as having some other mental health issues, sadly.
Yeah, it is sad. I think my father had struggled with mental illness too. He was in the Army, became a commanding officer, British Army, but he became an alcoholic, which is part of the story. I've read some threads too, but the mental illness, I think, was because of the pressures that we don't always know. Our parents try to do the best they can, but their brokenness, we sometimes later in life find out, which is what I really started learning reading your book. The last thing I want to say about narcissism, and I kind of smile, is it seems to be a thing these days, because my last guest, the last guest I had on, he was a reverend from a church, 40-year ministry out of Calgary, Alberta. And he was diagnosed, his wife left him, and he was diagnosed with narcissism. And he actually educated the audience about the fact that it's a disease, which, and so many people misuse it, right? They don't know what it is. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go back into Plato's here. You write that silence became your family's language. So walk us through one specific dinner where you learned to speak silence fluently. And what does a 6-year-old do with all the words she's not allowed to say?
Silence. Dinners were uncomfortable and awkward at best. we didn't communicate. There was no update on your day. How are your friends?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Who are you seeing? I think what I did was I communicated with myself a lot. I was very lonely, lonely. And I think what it did to me was it created a dialogue with myself in my head of, how do I get out of here? I don't want to be here. I knew very early on that I did not want to be where I was.
Wow.
And it wasn't just, the kids will often say, gee, I hope some other parent knocked on the door and said I was adopted and took me to a better place with nicer food or better clothes or whatever it was. I mean, I just knew that I didn't want to be there. And my conversation inside my head all the time was, how do I get out of here? What's going to get me out of here?
I mean, that's remarkable to me, only because I know we're talking about a child, right? And you know how, if studying neuroscience, a child's brain, how it's wired. Did you ever escape to go into the garden? I was trying to figure out where the gardening thread came in, or was that ever something
we didn't have, no, where I grew up, it was all concrete. There was no garden.
Oh, okay.
There was no greenery at all. No, the gardening thing came, honestly, when I left the city and moved to the suburbs and was sort of just shocked and amazed by these beautiful plants and greenery. And I thought, I wanted to do something and know more about it, which is why I like to learn. So that's why I became a master gardener. Yeah,
it's good for you. You were telling me off screen about the tomatoes you just planted, but if we go, everybody, this teaching moment from Joanne, if you go back and watch this, what you just said, when I mentioned gardening and you talk, your voice and your face just changes. It lights up, the big smile, right? So it's wonderful. Just keep doing that. Let me throw this out here. You skipped junior year, and for the context of international audience, not everybody will know what it is, so you can explain. You got accepted to Purdue at 16.
That was my mother.
Oh, this is your mother.
That was my mother who got accepted to Purdue at 16.
Okay.
I did go to college at 16 as well.
What's SUNY New Paltz?
It's the State University of New York.
Okay, but that was your mom?
No, that was me. That was me. Yeah.
So you went there. The day you packed that bag, what were you actually running towards, and what did you leave behind?
I was ecstatic, honestly. I mean, I left behind the silence of the closedness, the dysfunction, the indifference. Yeah. I left all that behind, and I was going out into the world. I mean, it was a whole new world for me. It was. Sure. I was the first person in my family to go away to college, to leave Brooklyn. I was really excited. That was what I had been working towards, I felt, for the previous 10 years.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. I think the audience probably can figure out that Wall Street isn't the most welcoming place back in that era for women, right? And there's another interview in my archives I'll point you to later. A lady, she calls herself, it's titled, her book was The Witch of Wall Street. And you might even know of her, but fascinating. I want to just talk a bit about your dad, and to honor him, really. We know it's a tough story. Who shaped you the most, dad or mom? I'm guessing it might be dad, but I'm not sure.
Oh, wow. That's a hard question. I think his absence.
Yeah.
I remember feeling like I was supposed to be able to depend on him.
Yeah.
And he just disappeared.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling always as though I coupled with my mother's statement, my mother's indifference and not participating in my life at all. I just really knew that I needed to be somebody that I could take care of myself, that I could not depend on anybody. There was no one I could depend on. Yeah. And that kind of drove what I did through my life in terms of education and work.
Yeah. Yeah, I've, as I mentioned, I spent a fair amount of time understanding how identity unfolds. I call it in a complex world. I just finished my doctorate on that topic. And what I've learned is, we learn about ourselves through each other. We learn through relational dialogue. Missing parts, we make up stories, and I call them neural adaptations. Like my dad left home at 12, right? And I thought I was a loser because I didn't do anything right. And I was straight A's in school, and I became a CEO at the age of 30 kind of thing. And it's like, Dad, and then I finally discovered My dad left home because he had to break the chains of trauma. He was drunk. But I found out just in my doctorate work that my great-grandfather was a slave, an indentured laborer. And so my dad's life must have been hell. And he had mental illness, I'm sure. So, you know, when we look deep in your story, I think the audience is learning so much. Let me put this out there. It might be emotional for you, and just do your best. The defining wound, I call it, your father's, sadly, the suicide. I'm reading, we did the research. It says the first suicide off the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. And you didn't learn about what actually happened until the age of 19. So just talk about what happened that night, if you can, and the transition to knowing.
What happened to my father that night? He went to work. He worked the night shift, and the office was over in Staten Island. We lived in Brooklyn, so it was the other side of the bridge. And he apparently, I was told, left work early, said he wasn't feeling well, and stopped on the bridge and jumped off the bridge. What always stuck with me and made it feel worse to me was that when you read studies about suicide, people who die by suicide, those who are unsuccessful will often say that minute when they do it, they regret it normally. And studies have shown where short fences have been installed on bridges, it gives people a moment to pause. And what always bothered me was my father took his shoes off, and apparently they were placed neatly side by side next to the car. And that always stuck with me, that it wasn't gee, I wish I hadn't done it as he did it. It was a definite decision to do it. I think what you had said earlier about, what defines you as you go through life, I always thought after that, if I had only been cuter, smarter, sweeter, said the right thing, funnier, anything, that somehow I could have prevented that. And I always felt with my mother's indifference that, I spent my life trying to get her attention, trying to get her to notice me, to acknowledge that I existed. With the finding out of how it happened, it was a class that I had signed up for, an elective. And, I knew at that point what I was going to find when I sent for the death certificate.
Really?
A friend of mine, I'd always say, my father had an accident, died in an accident, but I was dating someone, and he asked me, I was explaining why I wanted to leave, why I was, going over to France for school. And I said, I just need to get out of this situation. And, he asked about my father's death. And I said, he had some accident on the bridge, and car accident. And he looked at me like that can't be true, right? You can tell yourself it's true, but it's probably not. And that led for me to then investigate it.
Wow. Incredible. I mean, so something single thought in your mind to retrieve the death certificate, investigate it. There's a whole story in that. I'm just going to put this on the screen. You see back behind me, I point to it a lot in my show. There's a replica of a human brain.
Yes.
We'll call it Mrs. Brain or Mr. Brain. I'll say it comes off its head, and you can take it apart. And what's interesting is in the deeper parts of the brain, the hippocampus and where all the trauma sits, and the things about suicide. I want to talk about that for a minute with you, because this is what this is, right? When you say something, we connect. When I had my concussion, I fell on my head in a bathtub and cracked the tub. And then through the next 3 months, I slipped into depression, seriously. But I had the first suicidal ideation thoughts. It was crazy. And I told it as a story when I was speaking publicly. But then I had more thoughts. And one of them was about my daughter who was in university, and one was about my wife. I had visual images, and I learned from a psychiatrist, and tell me what you think, that suicidal ideation isn't just about you wanting to die, but it could be about harm to others. And I absolutely understand what you said, because I've said this to people. When I wanted to go away, it wasn't because I wanted to take my life. It was because I wanted what was going on in my head to stop. I call it the wolves, the voices.
Yeah, I think the pain that people are in, the mental pain and agony is excruciating, and there does not seem like there's any way out. I mean, I had at one point gotten into my own bad state, and I think when you're a child of suicide, or have experienced someone dying by suicide in some close proximity to you, you understand that it's a choice. It
Yeah,
is. It's an option.
for
It's
sure.
there. But for me, I also understood all those years of thinking, if only he had gotten on an airplane instead of doing that, if only he had just driven up to Canada, for example, or just taken a different route
Of
to get
course.
out of where he was,
Yeah.
then he'd still be here and life would be okay. But I think what you've just pointed out is it's not necessarily that kind of a thought process. It's that you are in so much pain, so much mental pain yourself, that it seems like the thing to do.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And you can live well with mental illness, and you have to get help, basically. And a lot of people who have these thoughts, like it took me 2 years to agree to go see a psychiatrist. My doc really got mad at me because I thought I could just deal with that. And thank God I did. Just want to read this off my paper here for a second. You doing okay?
Yeah, well, good.
You're awesome. The part where you said, just read the note here. He left the car running, unlaced his shoes, lined them up neatly beside the car, and jumped. And I think that comes from the book. And that in itself is telling. It brought to my mind a story of a good friend of mine who was a CEO of a big bank. He's now retired. His son died by suicide. And as the story went, because I read about it in a magazine, they featured it. The son planned the trip out. He went away. He came for Christmas, saw the family, spent time with them, and then they found his truck on a wharf somewhere overlooking the water. So he had planned all this out, and it's really, really sad. I want to honor you for saying died by suicide. I think you probably know this because you're well read. There's a lot of people who say took his life, and that's why there's a stigma. You don't take your life. That's got shame attached to it.
Yeah.
Your father died by suicide. We have to honor him, and he had deep, deep challenges. So let's move on from that if we can. Let's do something positive and hold up the book there. You hold it up.
The book.
We'll do it in stereo. So read the title out.
House of Pretend.
How long did it take you to write this book?
I didn't set out to write a book. I started writing probably during the pandemic with some challenges going on in my life. And I remembered at one point in my 20s writing a letter to my mother. And I never sent it. I never intended to send it. But I just remember the act of writing my rage, which is what it was, made me feel so much better. When I put the pen down and was done, I felt so much better. I felt emptied of it. And I started doing that with what ended up being the book. I just started writing memories, and it felt very cathartic. I felt physically like I was getting the trauma and the hurt and the pain out of me. So I kept doing it. And then, one thing led to another. I did some workshops. I did some prompts. I went to a conference up in Cape Cod for writing, and I was really encouraged by others that I had a voice and I had a story.
Yeah, very cool.
So, it was a number of years of writing, rewriting, putting it aside for a year and a half and not touching it. And here it is. That's
good. Yeah, there it is for sure. And I put this on the screen because you said something that jogged my memory. It came a little sticky note with your writing on it. So in the back of my studio, you'll see a book stack. Every guest book sits there perpetually, so it'll always be honored on my shelf. But on the page 358, I just love this. It left a mark on me. It says, "The sweet white paper of life. The future presents as a fresh page. I pick up the pen and begin to write." I just love that metaphor. So very, very cool. And the picture on the front too. So let's keep going here. I'm going to take that back off the screen. We're going to go into mezzo now, which is sort of the sector where your work is. So whatever you do for your profession. And correct me if I say anything wrong here, but in 1988, you were 29 on a Tribeca sidewalk in heels, waiting for a town car. Your boss steps out of the Odeon and offers you $1 million to have his child. Take us back to that exact moment. What was the first sentence that ran through your head?
I don't think I can say it on the air.
We'll have to bleep it out. Describe it. Describe
what the hell is going on? What are you thinking? Like, how incredibly inappropriate could this be? Yeah, it's just, granted, it was Wall Street in the 80s, which pretty much anything went. But I was just, that was my first reaction. My second thought, of course, is I'm going to get fired at the end of this because I'm going to say no, and he's not going to want to look at me every day. Right.
Wow.
So that was the reality that I also knew would ultimately come to pass.
Did it light a fire in your belly, though? Did it light a fire too?
I think it also made me, once I started actually reflecting on what was it that he sensed in me that that might even be an option? Clearly, my emotional presentation, again, I pretended really well to be tough and to be able to handle anything, but emotionally, he must have smelt something off, that I was, yeah. So that really got me to thinking about what I needed to change internally.
Oh, good. So you segue into more of my notes here. I have a piece of paper I'm filling up with notes as you talk. I call them Joanne-isms, and that's his little book here. So I had this
going on there.
I know. Hey, not bad for somebody who can't see as well as I should. This one I call The Pattern She Lived, and to the camera, if you can see that little circle. Wow. My thumb is pointing to a circle, and in there it says, "Seeking older father figures." So, and this is just riffing on my thoughts. What followed was decades-long pattern of seeking father figures in older, unavailable men. I'm not saying you intentionally did that, but like you said, something was projecting from you to attract that. By her early teens, she was being approached by married teachers in their 40s, escaped Brooklyn at 16, or all these things. So that really, you said it, right? You were seeking something. And when you look back at that, what were you seeking? I mean, what was it?
I was seeking anyone to love me, but I had no idea what love was.
Yeah.
So I think what I ended up doing was getting into relationships, I use quotation marks, with people that would never be available or would never be appropriate, because then no one could ever reject me. Right? If I went into it knowing this was not a relationship that has any possibility of a future, then I could rationalize when it stopped that, of course, that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
But, I avoided ever opening myself up to show someone who I really was or what I was really feeling, because I was afraid that I would be rejected like my father did and my mother did.
Yeah, very interesting. There's so much psychology behind that. Everyone, we're here with the author of House of Pretend by Joanne Redding, and this book publishes in 6 days. So you got to get it. You got to post a review, because that's how we're going to get the word out. It's an interesting thing, because you probably know this from what feedback you've had, but how strong you are, because women or men too, who are broken and needy and whatnot, may have said, "Oh, he loves me. I'll take the $1 million. I'll do good so you don't fire me, etc." But you had it in you. Like, you've got this independence, this strength. I call it resilience. You'll know where it comes from. That made you say no. And then we'll talk a bit about the generational change you broke as well. So congratulations on that. Let's go back into Plato's. You earned the top spot in Citibank's capital markets training program among 40 trainees, I believe. Fewer than a handful of them were women. The strategy you described, dark suits, tiny ponytail, reading the room, sounds like the same skill set you built as a 6-year-old. So when did you realize the trading floor in the Brooklyn apartment had taught you the same lesson, or did it?
I think it did. I think I knew as I was growing up that I was tougher than most.
Really?
And I could take pretty much anything, because I already had, I was not, cruelty was okay. Anything was okay. I could take it. I knew I could take it.
Yeah. And my wife was telling me, because I met her in the banking industry, but she grew up in the male dominated industry. She would tell me stories that would make me cringe. Like one day, and she doesn't mind me saying this because she's told others, she was an administration officer in a bank branch, and the manager said, come sign these reports, sit on my lap, kind of thing. And it was really creepy, right? But back then it was the Wild West. There wasn't all these policies of HR and stuff. But one of the things I learned in my career is women have more strength in leadership. And I say this publicly as a coach of other people too, that they have this ability to be transformational where they can connect emotionally. Men don't always. And the way to change in somebody or to get them to change is through emotion. And women, when they can show their feminine side as well as masculine, I think are extremely powerful, and we need more in the boardrooms. What I find with your story, going back in that era, some guys were attracted to women, I think, who were strong and tough, but deep down inside, I think some men were intimidated because, you kind of are a woman, but you act like a man. I'm not sure if I can handle you.
Yeah, no, I definitely got a lot of that. I think in after the fact, after I left Wall Street and remained friendly with some of the men that I worked with, I did, and actually one of them read part of this book, and I think he was shocked because he believed what I presented as to be the whole me.
Wow.
And he spoke of it, how intimidating I seemed to be, that I really didn't need anybody.
But sometimes that's just, I call it armor because I've been through my own transformation, but I see it as somebody who's beautiful, smart, but the armor that's there is a protection. And it's really a persona that I think you adopt as a mask, I call it. And if you see in my studio, I'll show you some fun things. There's some masks everywhere.
I noticed those.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of my passion. One of them, actually, the one up above on the shelf, is modeled after my face. And I had a Hollywood mask maker make it. But going back to why did I do that? It's a lot about you and I could be sisters, because I wore a mask of not being enough, all this kind of stuff, because of not her hearing and being respected by my dad. I took the physical and mental, the black and blue kid. My dad was physical, and then the drunk, right? So interesting. You moved hundreds of millions of dollars in a day, yet you write that you still felt like a scared little girl underneath. For the leaders listening who have built impressive resumes on top of unhealed wounds, what did the wound actually cost you?
I loved working on Wall Street. I mean, it suited my personality and my temperament. I loved the risk. I loved the fast pace. I loved the action. I really did. But I'd go home at night to a beautiful apartment by myself. And I think that what it cost me was emotional connection.
Yeah.
That's what it cost me. How I presented on the trading desk is how I presented across the board. And no one really had a clue of what was inside that shell. If you just chipped away at the shell,
wow.
And I was afraid, I think, that if I just cracked it open a little bit, that everything would come pouring out, and that would be a bit too much for anybody. So.
Absolutely. You just had me a vision of a mask on that you finally cracked off. What I like about the book, I'm holding it up again myself, is I really love how you wrote it. So the chapters, there's like 100, I wrote here somewhere, 102 chapters, which is unusual, but they're all 3-4 pages. And there's all these little story arcs that you just are on the edge of your seat, and you finish a chapter, dopamine in the brain, you go, give me more. I really, really like the way you've written that, because I can't stay focused in books myself. Did you intentionally choose to write it that way?
Yes, I think that that's more appealing to a lot of people. I think people lead very busy lives, and as I said, I'm a massive reader, but most people don't read that as much as I do. And I think that most people, the way their lives are structured, shorter chapters work better. And it just seemed to work with how my mind worked in telling the story. Yeah,
it's very cool. Thank you. I hope you do an audiobook of it at some point, because that would be powerful, I think, even if you narrate it yourself or have somebody else. Let's go into macro, the last part of Plato's, and that's the global. So this is called influences from the world, right? So as an example, if you grew up with parents from the Depression era, they might have shaped how you think, whatever. So your father was a newspaper man in an era when mental illness was not something people talked about, in my view. Sadly, your brother, decades later, got too little too late. If you could speak to one parent listening right now whose teenager is struggling and they do not know what to say, what would you wish someone had said to your mother?
I wish someone had told my mother that she didn't need to go through this by herself, that they were there for her. I think that, I think just a little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy from someone can go a long way. I think that people who are in the middle of a crisis, dealing with mental health, having experienced suicide, I think that you can feel such shame and guilt and loneliness and be overwhelmed, and just one little hand reaching out can make a huge difference. I wish, as you said, the era back then, accessibility or even acknowledgement of mental health help was virtually non-existent to most people.
Yeah.
And I think it's different now. And I think if everyone just acknowledges that we all have issues, we all know someone who has had problems, it makes it a whole lot easier for people to ask for help.
Yeah, no, and we'll honor your brother, because he died by suicide too. He shot himself in a motel room, and I put the note on my paper beside that. I put the brother she lost. So I'll give you a moment if you need to take a breath. Her old brother Thomas, great name. That's my legal name, actually, Thomas.
It's a good name.
Biblical or something. 2 years older, never recovered from it. Your dad's death I'm just assuming that. Became a drug dealer operating out of his bedroom in mom's apartment. Never married, never left. So I would imagine, with what you were feeling about the narcissism and feeling of your own mom, he probably absorbed. Do you think he had that same? Did he speak about that to you?
Oh yeah, I think we all knew she was struggling with issues. I think, unfortunately, everybody responds to grief and tragedy differently.
Yeah.
And I did my thing, just trying to find someone to love me some other way. And I think for him, he was already a shy, quiet little boy.
Yeah.
And I think he just went more and more inside himself and really had nowhere to go with all of his thoughts and his grief and his feelings, and didn't know how to handle it. And when he started asking for help, it was too late.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. You're right that mental illness is not a choice, it's an illness, which I totally agree. People are struggling, may act in ways that are hurtful. Those actions are not who they are. Let me just ask you this: that for our global audience, what shifts when a workplace, a family, a country starts believing that?
Oh my God, I think that the world becomes a so much better place. I think if people can be honest about their struggles, it makes everyone breathe a bit easier, because you feel less lonely, you feel less scared.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. I really believe that things change in life, and you're born golden and innocent, and then things change in life. It can change midway, and all of a sudden you feel you can't get out of this trap, and suicidal ideation, and the brain plays tricks on you. And so I really think that for your brother, that was the path. It's interesting because my younger brother, who's 6 years younger, he has Tourette's syndrome, if you know what that is. It's horrible. Yeah. And looking back now, some people think that it was triggered by the trauma in our home because of my dad's behavior and violence, right? And same thing, my brother was born an innocent kid. He was kind of the jester, goofy, and he became an alcoholic, but his life was ruined by circumstances put on him, not of his own. It brought one thought to me, though, about your mom, which I want to just throw this out to ask you, because I discovered this about my dad. Like, did you know anything about your mom's parents? And it's interesting, right? Because you wear this armor the way you were projecting. I think in some ways, maybe your mom had this armor where she was a narcissist. She didn't like you crying and all this stuff. But was she shaped that way by trauma in her life, do you think?
I do think so. I mean, I speak a little bit about it in the book. Her mother was I remember her being very cold, very
really
cut off. I think what happened to them was some tragedies when my mother was going to go to Purdue, as you had mentioned. her brother was in the war. Her two brothers were in the war, and one of them got shot down over Germany and killed. And her father, who had been in World War I, was traumatized by it, and he died, not that long after. And I think that the tragedies that hung over that household affected her. Here she was on the cusp of being able to start a new life.
Yeah.
I stumbled across her high school yearbook. She sounded like a different person. I think all of that just really weighed down on her.
Yeah.
And she had no way to get out. She didn't know what to do with it.
Interesting. So you actually got her high school yearbook. That's interesting. Good for you. Again, it goes back to what I was saying to you, that I had to do the same with figuring out the missing parts of me. And actually, through my research, found the village where my great-grandfather was born in India. I commissioned a group to go there, and they did a report, and I discovered all this stuff.
Oh, fascinating.
And I discovered that my great-grandfather, despite was an indentured laborer, he was sent from India on a ship to Fiji to work on the plantations. My parents were born in Fiji. So he was a horrible life, lied to, and treated like coolie huts and all this. But he became a philanthropist. He opened a candy store, supported 20 families. And my dad used to talk about him. His name was Lali Miraj. Lali means, in Hindi, means candy. I don't speak the language, but my dad did. And Miraj is given to somebody who's of high honor in Fiji. Wow. And it's like, so the parallels are stark here, going from a person who probably was hated by his own father, or was by his kids, to coming through this slavery to becoming something great. That made me, when I saw my dad once before he died unexpectedly in 18, that whole missing pieces, and I just discovered in the last year and a half, completely healed my soul. And
I bet.
I sense that from reading your book too. I want to honor you for all the work you've done putting into this, because every chapter in that is going to change someone's life. So he's just amazing. We'll give you some cheap applause there for that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're almost at the end of this we'll go into one more section here. And I'm going to call this the, there was a note I put here about the marriage that buckled. Your husband's Rick, and I saw in the acknowledgement in the book, a nice thing you said. His things changed with him. He descended into child addiction or some things. But something I wrote here about breaking the cycle. Hannah Cole, your refusal to repeat your mother's pattern of silence is one of the most quietly powerful arcs in the memoir. Just talk to me about what I just said.
I think, so many people struggle with addiction of various sorts, acknowledged or unknowledged. And we definitely had to deal with that with their dad. He was a great guy, really great guy.
Yeah.
And he was super encouraging to me always.
Well, that's amazing. Did he go through AA or anything, or was it just?
Yeah, it was a struggle. It was a very, very difficult struggle for him.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Thanks for sharing. My dad was 23 years in AA before he passed, and I never knew him all my life, so I didn't really know that part of him. But that's another story for another day. The forgiveness piece I want you to talk about. This is not a question, but this part I wrote down, mom, later in life, something about dementia, and then on a midnight blue couch, something was exchanged. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I spent my whole life wishing that she'd change, that something would click and we'd suddenly be a family with the white picket fence and all of that. I really did. I'm an optimist at the end of it all, and I really hope that would happen. And my mother suffered from memory issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, not sure, what exactly it was, but she was in I got her into a memory care facility, and, they give them cocktails of various drugs to see what might work and what might not. And usually she was pretty monotone or non-communicative. And we were sitting one day and she had a moment of clarity and said to me what I had been waiting my entire life to hear. She said, "I am so sorry. It could have been so different." And I was stunned. And, she immediately went back into her other state of mind. But, it was then you just realize that she was aware. She was aware of how awful it was, or maybe not at the time, but in retrospect, she was. And, again, you realize that this is not the life that she led. The life that we had certainly would not be one that you'd choose to live. So, and you have your own problems, as you mentioned, addictions crop up. You realize that people usually are just doing the best that they can do. And it may not be good enough. It may not be okay to sit a 6-year-old down and say that to them, but you got to forgive them because they're in the middle of stuff they don't know how to deal with and they're getting no help.
What a teaching moment. Thank you for sharing all of that. Go back and listen to this segment from Joanne, everybody, the teaching moment there. This forgiveness thing's a big deal. And I think the fact that you're teaching it is going to be a major impact for so many lives. I'll tell you why I say that, because a lot of people I know, like my two brothers, they are still angry at my dad. They never made peace. And here, what happened with me is I was estranged from him, but 3 months before he passed away unexpectedly, he had a heart attack in his home. He lived on his own. We, for some reason, got together at Starbucks for coffee, not far from his house. Now, I'd never been to his place, and I hadn't seen him for a long time. And he said one single thing over this coffee. I was waiting in Starbucks. I'm like in an emotional puddle melting inside. He walks in, and he's got this little goatee, and he's frail, right? A little tiny guy, a little shorter than me, jet black hair still. And I didn't know what to say, Joanne. And he looks across the table, and I'm just looking at him unemotionally. He goes, "Son," he says, "I love you." And he says, "I'm sorry what I did to you." And he says, "I love your book," because my first book, I didn't put him in a good light. And I couldn't cry. I still have trouble. But I sat for half an hour with him, and he started opening up and telling me stuff about my brother and reaching out for help and about this and that. And then we ended the coffee where I said, "Dad, tell me about Granddad." And he told me some stuff I didn't know. His dad died from alcohol poisoning. But the thing is, we agreed, Dad, I said, we took a selfie. I said, "Dad, let's meet for coffee every month starting in the new year." And then he died. But this is why you helped me so much remembering this. That one moment he said that, I hadn't heard all my life, or maybe I did, but my brain covered it up with all the abuse. "I love you, son. I'm sorry." I needed to hear it. And then I released him. So forgiveness to me is not about forgiving his hits and all his bad stuff. It's forgiving him so he can release him to be free. And that's, I think, why he died so soon after. He was waiting for that. And so I really honor you for breaking that generational trauma chain with your own family and sharing your story with the world. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Wow, what a topic. So now are you ready to get honored with some things so we can build you up?
Sure.
Ready for a few surprises? Okay. So here we go. So the first thing is, and you get to just relax and enjoy this. I'm going to put something on the screen. Can you see that? I know you can't read it. It's fine. And I'm going to read it so you can just relax. And this is on Amazon, everyone. You can't post the review till the book's released. So this will be posted in live. But I'm going to read it out. I've written a 5-star review for your book. It's a bit. So here goes. You'll get a copy. So the book is titled "She Took the Pen Back and Wrote Her Own Ending." 5 stars by Tom Dutta, May 13th. A business associate passed his book along to me. I opened it expecting a Wall Street story. I closed it. Changed person. Joanne Redding does not write a memoir in the way most people write a memoir. She writes the way a woman writes when she has finally stopped pretending. Every chapter is a quiet act of courage. Every sentence carries the weight of a girl who learned to disappear at 6 and the woman who decades later decided to come back. The book opens on a Wall Street sidewalk in 88. Her boss has just offered $1 million to have her child. As he's 29 in heels, surrounded by glass and steel. And in the middle of that scene, the reader realizes this is not a book about money. It's a book about silence. The silence began on the summer morning in Brooklyn when the young police officer knocked on the door. Her dad, a newspaper editor she adored, was found on the bridge. A few days later, her mother sat her down on the couch, said one sentence, which we already known. What follows is a story I have not read before. A girl who escapes to college at 16, a young woman who lands in French village with no money, finds a mentor who actually sees her. A bond trader learns to read a room before she had to read a mother. A wife who carries a marriage on her back, a mother who refuses to repeat the silence. What makes this memoir extraordinary is not the headline events. It's the honor Redding pays to the truth, even when the truth is messy. She does not write herself as a victim. She does not write herself as a hero. She writes as a woman doing the slow, unglamorous work of becoming whole. The closing chapters broke me open. A dementia ward, a wheelchair, 3 small words from a mom who had never said them, a bike at the edge of a beach house, a woman who finally rides on her own. If you love The Glass Castle of Educated, you will love this. But House of Pretend is its own thing. It is quieter, more forgiving, more honest about how long it really takes. Read the book, call someone you love, and say the thing you have been pretending not to feel. 5 stars without any hesitation. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. You're
It's
gonna make
okay.
me cry.
You read my mind. I was going to say, it's okay to cry. I said that in my TED Talk. It's okay to say when you're not okay. You're awesome. A great book. And everyone, the reason why reviews are important is authors aren't known. And so the reviews online create a buzz for the book. The sales reps see it. They tell the bookstores, whatever. So get it out there. So let's go to the next piece, which is a question that we call this the Warrior's Torch. And then I'm going to give you an award. So we got lots of fun things here. If you know the show, we've been playing with this segment, the Warrior's Torch, where the last guest passes a question to me to ask you. They don't know who you are. This one is maybe a little challenging, but do your best, because that person who I just interviewed last week is a reverend with the church for 40 years.
Oh boy.
And I know. And I said, I don't, and I didn't tell him who you were or anything about you. And so I'm taking a risk here, but I said, what's one question you're going to ask? And he said, here's his question. Have you made Jesus the Lord of your life? And if not, why not?
The answer is no. And the reason is I think that with religion, so much is dependent on where you happen to be born. Right.
Really?
So if I were born in a different country, I'd be theoretically, in a different religion. And in my mind, I do believe that there is more to the world than what we know now.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there is our energy goes somewhere else when we leave this earth, that we don't totally disappear. I don't know what it is. But I don't think, for me, putting it into a box called Jesus doesn't work for me. I feel like I worry that is done to the exclusion of everyone else who happens to be born Jewish or Hindu or a Taoist or a Buddhist or whatever.
Sure. So thank you for sharing your answer, and we would totally respect your answer.
It's not controversial, but I'm being honest.
Well, you know what? It's not, because there are atheists, people who believe, change their minds about their faith. When I was a kid, I was baptized Catholic and then hated my faith because of what was going on in my home. My dad was a Hindu, then a Mormon, and I was all confused about religion. Jesus Christ is a relationship with one person. So absolutely fine with your belief. The interesting thing about what I read, I don't know if I read it somewhere, but you couldn't bury your dad because it was suicide, right?
Yeah, they would not bury him in a Catholic cemetery.
That is so sad, and I'm so sorry. But it is something I wanted. You opened me up on this. I want to share this because we're riffing on it. That I have a good friend in Ohio, John. I call him Brother John, and he actually a long time ago taught me something that I needed about something that got me through something. And he's a pastor, but he's a teacher at a high school. And I said to John told me openly he struggles with mental health, but we agreed it's not comfortable talking about it as a pastor because it's looked down upon. I have another friend, he wrote a book, Eddie Anders, and he was a session musician. I encourage you to get his book. It's called Waking Up Dead. I'm not plugging it, but he was on the show years ago and he published his book through my publisher. But I met Eddie at this red carpet event where we did our reveals, and he was a session musician and then tried to take his life. He told in his book, he tells a story where he went on a computer after performing one day, and he performed with the greats like Dolly Parton's and Vince Gill's. The guy's talented, right? And he walked off stage and he said he Googled how to do this. He got pills and all that. He went far away to this motel room, and they found him on the floor, and he didn't do it properly. So he got brought back and saved him, but he was ostracized from his church, and he was crushed. And my wife, every morning she'll watch one of the shows she tends to watch on faith, and there's a pastor on there. And I told her one day, she covered it up, this woman. I won't say her name, but she would always say, believe in God, and, stop complaining if you're depressed, stop thinking about that, pray. And a part of me, because I've dealt with mental illness and come through it, is going like, why don't you just be quiet? And then one day we saw a show, she did an interview where somebody must have got to her and said, you got to start talking. And she told the story that some young girl in her congregation sent her an email that she was dealing with depression, taking medication, and she told her off. And so this pastor comes out publicly, and she's well known on her thing. All Americans, millions watch her. And she had this Talk It Out show with a counselor guy she brought in, and she disclosed that she'd been on SSRIs, depression, for most of her career. And I'm going like, you moron.
Shame on her.
Shame on her. So that's why this is a good topic. We separate it from religion or faith. You can believe what you want, but mental illness is an illness, and you can't just pray and go away. And so, so this whole answer you gave really helped open up a dialogue here, and I think it makes a difference. So thank you. So on that note, let's flip to the last thing I want to ask you, which is give us a question to ask our next guest. To be universal, not gender specific. And I can't tell you who the guest is, but they are an American, and they're a young person. Anything at all? Just
what do you think the one change people could make in their daily life that would be the best for the world?
So because I'm slow to write, what do you think the one change
people could make in their lives?
Could make
to make the world a better place.
I love it. Their lives to make
the world a better place.
Pretty amazing. I think I'm going to, for one of a future book, I'm going to take all these questions, and it could be a great book, right?
I think that's a great idea, actually. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just take that off the screen. And okay, that's wonderful. So before we wrap with you, I'm going to honor you with an award. Did you know you're getting an award?
No, but I love to get an award. I'm excited.
I know that hard driving, driven woman seeking. I always used to, I had this line in my TED talk. I said I was a self-worth chaser, not a success chaser. So, but we like our trinkets and our awards. Do you know what challenge coins are?
Yes, I've heard you talk about them.
Okay, great. So yes. It comes in a little sleeve. We'll get your address in offline. I hope to meet you one day too. And this is what comes with it. So for the audience, I'm just going to say what it is. Challenge coins were surfaced during the World War I era. The practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces. Carrying the coin at all times and presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation with that unit resulted in a number of consequences for those who could not produce a coin. The most popular required the coinless soldier to buy a round of drinks, and apparently that still happens today. Joanne, these are carried by first responders. So many groups, AA had their version of coins. People collect them. So when I started the show, the narrative was to bring the 1% of people in the world who have a dark or deep story that they found pain, they turned it into something good, and then they brought it back to teach and change the world, make an impact. That's why I vetted hard to get people like you on the show. So here it is, hand-painted and minted in the U.S.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
They're raised letters. And in the back of it, I'm biased, but it's my favorite too, is the hero's journey narrative by Joe Campbell about the journey we take to find that pain, turn it into something good, right? And teach. It's so intricate. That's it on the back there. So beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I love the applause.
Okay, I'm glad. You never can get too much free applause. So on that note, while I set up my board to do the exit music, tell us anything you want that you haven't said and where to get a hold of the book and your work.
I just think, forgive people, tell people you love them, and have a great life. Life is good.
Life is good. And where can they get a hold of your work, your book and stuff?
So the book, House of Pretend, it's going to be available everywhere books are sold. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your local bookstore. They can order it through Simon & Schuster. I have a website, joannereddingauthor.com, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And if you reach out to me, I'm happy to talk.
There's a nugget. Instagram on Facebook. Instagram, I'm on there too as The Quiet Warrior Eats. I create food plates and I tell stories with them, just like your gardening maybe. So
Nice.
find me on there. But on that note, find your true passion and purpose, like you hear from Joanne Redding, and obviously get this book, read it, post a review, and live the life that you deserve and desire, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the Quiet Warrior Show. And Joanna, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Tom. I
You're
appreciated
welcome.
it.
Stand by.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay, so just stand by. We're still live, so I'm going to do something which you're going to find funny, and I'm going to do it live, okay? Because I forgot to do something. We go an hour, and it's just flown by, right? It's amazing. But going to put that review back up. I've started doing this. You're the second person I'm doing it with, and you're on LinkedIn, right? You have a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Okay, make sure you accept my invite there. And so I have. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let me just put this one back up. There it is. I'm starting to reveal live a LinkedIn recommendation for the guests that I want to recommend. Now, LinkedIn's such a big deal because you can send through it to anyone a recommendation. You write it, they get to vet it, and if they like it, they can put it on their profile. And why it's important, I think, for authors and people like you is it speaks loudly about who you are, and people seeing LinkedIn, it's referable. It recommends you. So here we go. I'm revealing live, and this will be posted on your LinkedIn. So this is what I'll write. Some guests give you their resume. Joanne Redding hands you a 6-year-old on a couch and asks you to sit with her for a minute. I recently spent an hour with Joanne on the Quiet Warrior Show, head of the launch of her memoir, House of Pretend. What I expected was a Wall Street story. What I got was a masterclass in what unhealed silence costs a career, family, and country. Joanne is a former bond trader who built a desk at Citibank, Chicago Research and Trading, ran her own landscape design business, raised 2 extraordinary young adults, and somehow had the courage to write the book most people spend a lifetime not writing. What stayed with me is not the headline events, it's the honor she pays to the truth, even when the truth is messy. She does not perform survival, she practices it. So if you lead people, parent people, or are quietly reckoning with what your own early years cost your later career, follow Joanne, read her words, listen to her, how she thinks about silence, mental illness, and the slow work of becoming whole. So congratulations again.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's really beautiful. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know have you ever had a recommendation sent to you from LinkedIn?
No.
So you'll see it pop up in your LinkedIn messages, and it'll say, here, Tom's written this for you. You get to read it and tell me you want to edit it, or then if not, you just click and they'll post it and it stays on your profile under recommendations. And then I'm selfishly going to ask you to write one for me about the experience on the show. So
Absolutely.
But on that note, it's been so much fun, and thank you so much. And we're connected for life, and I'm here to help you and support in any way we can.
Tom, thank you. I'm really impressed. I mean, you do a lot of good work. You really do. And when you come east, let me know. We'll get together.
Absolutely. Yay. And I promise you, I won't give you $1 million for a task.
I'll turn it down.
Somebody
a little too old for that now.
No, that's great. And let me just take us off live here. So hold on a second. Stream.